Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of DailyTruzz. Today, we're going to be talking about all things Baltimore. We're going to be talking a little bit about the game against the Tennessee Titans, a little bit about the game of the Buffalo Bills coming next week, and just some side little happy news that we can discuss and, see the brighter side of Baltimore. So first, I want to get into the game last week against Tennessee. I think that was a team win. I know there was a lot of hype around Lamar getting his first playoff win and shutting that narrative up, but the problem going into that was facing against Derrick Henry, who has 2,000 yards rushing on the season, and it's just he's an absolute tank. You have to give the man the respect he deserves, but I think our defense really stepped up and. Once they kind of started shutting him down, I noticed Matt Judon was after him a little bit, and it seems like they were always running one of the linebackers over top, kind of watching him. And I noticed that once they started shutting him down, that's when they started throwing those passes from Tannehill to A.J. Brown. And, Marlon Humphrey, he sent out a tweet and said he wasn't with it at the beginning and that he is going to bounce back. But all in all, he was pretty high intensity. Him and Marcus Peters and the entire secondary really was they were just kind of shooting on all cylinders. So I think it was a good defensive win. I think it was a good offensive win. I was watching Good Morning Football, and they said that was not a lights out performance by Lamar Jackson for his passing game, and I didn't quite know what they meant by that because he actually had more passing yards than he did rushing yards. And while they said it was a lights out rushing game, it kind of caught my attention because that wasn't really a Lamar Jackson rushing game day. I mean, he's an animal out there, and he really killed it, and he got those two big runs. But us Baltimore fans know that Lamar Jackson, he's an electric player, and he did win. He did play dominant. He was fast. He was electric. However, I think that was still one of the slower games for the guy. And that just excites me for next week against Buffalo. I think the whole offense is clicking. Hollywood, there's been a lot of question about Hollywood's performance so far this season, but when you look at what he produced last Sunday, he had a good amount of yards, and they were using a lot of quick dump passes, which I was really worried about what Greg Roman would come out doing if he was going to try to abandon the run game like he did in those earlier games this season, or if he was going to stick to the plan and let Baltimore's offense do what Baltimore's offense does, and that's nothing but taking the ball and running it down your throats. Sure, Lamar can hit those passes and keep everybody kind of under question, but at the same time, it's good to see them going back, because that is Baltimore's thing, is they're an aggressive running team. They have a tremendous amount of rushing yards. They have Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram, which I noticed he wasn't even dressed last game. It kind of raised a little question to me, but at the same time, I think, hey, that just means he's going to come off this week against the Bills, hopefully, and maybe he'll be a little more aggressive. He'll be dressed and he'll be active, so we're going to go with 3 running backs active for that game, maybe. We'll have to keep our eyes and ears open watching for that. But yeah, Patrick Queen got in there, Malik Harrison got in there. I don't know if anybody else saw the hit in the first quarter Malik Harrison laid on Derrick Henry, but I couldn't help but not notice that. I was sitting in Buffalo Wild Wings, and I was sitting there enjoying my wings, and the wing fell out of my mouth. I saw him hit him, and I was like, geez, where did that come from? Malik Harrison's one of those linebackers. He only got, I want to say like 60, maybe 50% of the snaps on defense, and he did not play the entire game. You had Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, and Matt Judon. They played 100% of the defensive snaps, but Malik Harrison did not. And when I noticed that he got him like that hard and that aggressive, he filled that gap, and it was high intensity on defense the whole time. Derrick Henry was held to under 50 yards rushing, which I don't even know if that's happened previously this season because he's such an animal. But it seems like every time he went to go find a gap, one of Baltimore's defenders were right there filling that gap and shutting that run down. I think they did a really good job at filling the gaps and wrapping up when you tackle. Just the basic mechanics that it seems like Baltimore kind of slips away from sometimes. And it was good to see that they did that and stopped Derrick Henry, and it was good to see that Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters also had a very good game. That Marcus Peters interception at the end, man, I relive it once a day at minimum. I was sitting there and I just had this feeling that this was going to be the week that we did that. We pulled that upset. Everybody said Lamar Jackson can't come back from being behind when trailing from 10 plus. He can't win a playoff game. We can't beat the Titans. And, 1, 2, 3, check them all off the list because we were down 10-0. It was a playoff game on the road in Tennessee. Derrick Henry was completely healthy, and he's been having a great season. And Lamar Jackson won a playoff game, man. He did that. I think Lamar Jackson's a talented player, and I think he's going to continue to win a lot of games with his legs and his arms. So, you got to really just kind of take into consideration how we came in from last season with that chip on our shoulder, and then what Tennessee did earlier this season at M&T Bank Stadium with that logo situation and the situation with John Harbaugh and Malcolm Butler, So we kind of went out there, and there's a lot of talk on whether or not it was good that Lamar left the stadium without saying anything, without questioning or shaking hands with anybody. I think it was deserved. Lamar Jackson's humble. He's polite. He's a nice player. It's kind of good to see him have that pissed off knack. Lamar can be that guy. He doesn't have to be the nice guy all the time because he is respectable and he is a very nice, polite player. But it's good to see him have a fire, that Baltimore fire, because Baltimore was built on that nitty-gritty, tough football, man. And so seeing Lamar get that fire in his eyes and that little trash talk where Malcolm Butler said something to him on the sidelines, and you just see Lamar Jackson saying, "Bet, man, let's go. I can do this." And so it was just great to watch Baltimore light up. They've had a good past couple of games this season, and I think the Dallas Cowboys was kind of the turning point where they really turned it on, and they ran through the rest of the season. Then in that game in Cleveland, that game in Cleveland was something else too. You can't take for granted what they had going there. I think Hollywood had a good game. I think Lamar Jackson had that monstrous run, that Marcus Peters interception. We stopped Derrick Henry. And, lastly, I want to talk about the momentum from that. You have the momentum from the playoff win. You have the hype coming from all the narratives being erased. Lamar Jackson's pissed off for greatness, like Ray Lewis always used to say. And I think you have that emotional momentum coming from that personal fire from it being the Titans. So I think going into Buffalo this week in the divisional round, I think it's going to be an interesting game. You have Marlon Humphrey and you have Stephon Diggs. You got Josh Allen. And I don't know, is Lamar Jackson going to rush for that much, I saw a thing where the Stephen Smith said that he does not think Buffalo is going to be able to beat Baltimore. And I would like to think Mr. Smith is correct because Baltimore is dangerous. They have three, ridiculously talented running backs. You have Lamar Jackson at quarterback. If they have Mark Ingram dressed, you have Gus Edwards, and he just runs through people. You have J.K. Dobbins, who's young and explosive. He has not hit his rookie wall. But on the other side of that ball, you have Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. So they're very talented. Josh Allen can run when he needs to. I don't think, obviously he's not nearly close to being as fast and electric as Lamar, but he can still get open, he can get away. So maybe Patrick Queen and Malik Harrison and Matt Judon, they have something to watch for this week. They're great athletes, and I think they can do it. But, there's kind of a dark night here in Baltimore and on that offense that no one really talks about. He's gotten a lot of hype this past week. But Pat Ricard, Project Pat, the man is a 300-pound fullback who can catch and rush the damn ball. And that's not something you see every day. So you have Pat Ricard, you have Lamar Jackson, Gus Edwards, Mark Ingram, J.K. Dobbins. You have an explosive offensive line who, they had a lot of work to do at the beginning of the season, but they started clicking. They found their mojo. Ronnie Stanley went down, which, you can only hope he gets better and healed up, but we had to figure something out for the time being, and we did. And on top of that, you have Hollywood, you have Willie Snead, you have Mark Andrews. You have some big, powerful players. And when Lamar Jackson does what Lamar Jackson does, he makes sure he gets that ball where that ball needs to be, whether it's with him holding it, tucking it, and running it, and see you later defense, or finding Hollywood or Mark Andrews, or passing it off to Mark Ingram or J.K. Dobbins. But I think this week's going to be an interesting game. I would like to say we'll come out with a win, but I have a long time rule that I don't talk and jinx anything about the upcoming game for the week of. The minute that clock hits 00, I'll talk my talk, but not until then. So yeah, I think when the running backs just shove it down their throats and Lamar Jackson does what he does, I think it'll start to really open up. Because the Buffalo Bills, they are on fire. They got their first playoff win in 25 years this season. Josh Allen, he's got a chip on his shoulder. He wants to keep going. And this has been the craziest football season. I mean, the Cleveland Browns beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in the Wildcard Round and are now in the divisional against Kansas City. What does that say for Baltimore? I would like to say, again, I don't like to talk. I would love to see Cleveland knock off Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, they are some dominant football players. Andy Reid is leading a powerhouse of a team in Kansas City. However, Cleveland is on fire. You have Myles Garrett. You have Baker Mayfield. You have Jarvis Landry. You have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, which is so underrated. No one talks about them that much. You have two running backs that you can just keep shoving it down a defense's throat until they get tired. But their running backs never get tired because you can keep alternating them like that. So I would like to see an upset in Kansas this week. I don't know if it'll happen. I don't want to jinx anything. It's a big thing to ask for because they are that AFC powerhouse. But, it could happen. And if Baltimore beats Buffalo, that would put Baltimore and Cleveland in the AFC Championship. And that would be a very great game to watch, I think. So, that's something to just kind of watch for. Whenever I say it's game day, I'm not just watching Baltimore. I'm watching all of the games because I like to keep in touch and I like to watch what's going on around the league. So, so that's what I think about Buffalo. I think if we go in there and we play like Baltimore can play, I think they can do it. I think they can win in Buffalo. I think they can stop the playoff run for Buffalo. I think John Harbaugh can coach us to another victory and put us in the AFC Championship. And, who's to not say we have to play Kansas City in the championship, the AFC Championship? I really do think if we play like Baltimore could play, we can stop Kansas City. I mean, once you put pressure on Patrick Mahomes, he has to find, and Patrick Mahomes is a very talented quarterback, but he has got to look for someone. He's got to find Tyreek Hill. He's got to find his running back. He's going to find Travis Kelce. And, you also have Sammy Watkins, which is a very talented deep threat. But I think if you put pressure on Patrick Mahomes and you cover up his weapons, you have nowhere for him to go. He's caged. The Las Vegas Raiders did it. So why can't Baltimore? Why can't Cleveland? I think it's something you can watch for. Potentially they go and get a back-to-back Super Bowl win. Good for them. Good for Kansas City. I like Patrick Mahomes. He's a great quarterback. I think what they got going on down there is super, super talented, but I think Baltimore can do it. I think Cleveland can do it. I think someone can stop them. They are not invincible. They are talented. They're good. They're respectable, but they're not invincible. And so that's what I think about Buffalo. That's my take. That's my take on the AFC playoffs this year. How about talking about Ronnie Stanley? He goes down against Pittsburgh early on in the season Ronnie Stanley signs a 5-year, $112.9 million contract, and then he goes down and gets hurt. Bad luck? I wouldn't know. But I think Baltimore, they ride around their team. That's what this team's all about. They're all about, it's a family in Baltimore. That's what I like about this team. They love each other. I saw Marlon Humphrey's Instagram story, how Ronnie Stanley was scooting around in his little leg scooter, or how Lamar Jackson parked his Jeep in the parking lot where all the coaches and upper staff parks. Yeah, I thought that was funny. So I hope Ronnie Stanley heals. I've seen things that he'll be better by 2021, and when we add him back to that Baltimore offense, we'll be opening up more holes and giving them more places to run and giving Lamar Jackson a little bit more cover time. So nothing against our offensive line now. I think they're great. I love Bradley Bozeman, Patrick McCarry, but I think Ronnie Stanley's a great addition to that kind of dynamic. So I saw this thing where John Harbaugh said that was the best win he's ever experienced in Tennessee. And, that's really kind of saying something for the guy, considering he's been coaching Baltimore since 2008, if I'm correct. He went in the Super Bowl against his very own brother. He's had 13 seasons with the Baltimore Ravens, and his win-loss record is 129 wins, 79 losses. You have 129 wins to pick from. And the Tennessee Titans in the AFC Wildcard, that's his favorite win. So I think that's really kind of cool. That's kind of something special. And, I think this is going to be a good week. I think we're going to go into Buffalo. If Baltimore plays like they can play, we'll come out with a win. And I'll have more for you tomorrow. So thanks, guys. We'll be here every morning dropping at 9 a.m. for your coffee time. You can listen to the Daily Truzz. So have a good day, and remember, Big Truzz.